Hello there, and welcome to another episode of Dafuq Did I Just Watch? With your host, as always, Kyle McLemore. This week we'll be recapping and reviewing the latest action comedy holiday movie that is Violent Night. Ho, ho, ho. Now, before we get the review started, let's go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. It definitely helps the show stay alive, and we appreciate it here at Dafuq. And if you haven't seen Violent Night, but would still like to, make sure you pause now and return later, as there may be several spoilers up ahead. That's right, this is your official spoiler alert. And it doesn't feel quite right reviewing a Christmas movie without a little bit more Christmas gear, so excuse me 1 second while we Christmas it up. There we are, looking much more festive. Now let's start things off, as we often do, with the synopsis to the film. When a group of mercenaries attack a wealthy family's estate, Santa Claus himself must step in to not only save the day, but to save Christmas. Directed by Tommy Wirkola, who doesn't have the longest list of filmography, but he does have similar movies that he's done before, like Dead Snow, another movie featured in the snow, and also Hassell and Gretel, the action fairy tale movie. Written by Pat Casey and Josh Miller, who, interesting enough, were the same duo who wrote the movies Sonic 1 and 2. I guess doing a few too many kids movies, they wanted to get off and do something a little more violent and adult themed. Let's talk about some of the stars of the film, starting of course with the lead role, Santa Claus himself, played by David Harbour, who you probably recognize most recently from Stranger Things. David Harbour giving a great multi-layered performance. It starts out with our Santa Claus being introduced as kind of a end-of-the-road Santa, kind of a Santa who's given up on the job, who's ready to call it quits after one last ride. He's tired of all the greed, all the endless wanting of just cash and money and no real spirit of Christmas. So we have a kind of broken, downtrodden Santa at the beginning of the film, and David Harbour does a fantastic job portraying Santa Claus. Not only is he unbelievably sweet and kind of lovable and just like everything you want in a Santa, he's also simultaneously completely badass John Wick in it all up and down this estate. Not only is David Harbour giving a great performance when he's being a badass and kicking all the bad guys' asses, but he's also unbelievably charming and caring when he's having any kind of interaction with the little girl in the movie, Leah Brady, who just is the sweetest, most adorable little girl you could possibly ask for. And her acting throughout the film is phenomenal. She is funny and brave and cute and scared, and she just hits all the points great on her, and all the interactions between her and David Harbour are legitimate, genuine Santa and little child interactions, and it is fantastic and honestly very heartwarming. The rest of the supporting cast is fantastic as well. The main little girl's parents, Alex Hassell and Alexis Louder, are both fantastic as our AB parents. They're probably the more normal of the family, the less greedy of the bunch, and they are extremely loving, and honestly, Alex Hassell is insanely charming in this movie. And that brings us to the more outlandish characters, starting with the head of the family, played by Beverly D'Angelo, who you probably recognize from her work in the National Lampoon Vacation movies, who is great in this movie, playing an ice-cold bitch. She is a wealthy, top of the company kind of business lady who don't take no shit, and she is just hard as stone and cold as ice, and she plays it great. It's always great to see Beverly D'Angelo, and she looks amazing, acts amazing. She is always an ace in the hole, and this is no exception. Edie Patterson is also fantastic. You may recognize her from her work in The Righteous Gemstones, and although she is basically playing the same character in this film, that doesn't take away from how great her performance is. She supplies most of the comedic relief, and she is a joy from start to finish. Never gets tiring, never gets too much. She's just great from start to finish. And that brings us to our villain of the film, John Leguizamo, whose performance is pretty good. I mean, he is always fun as a bad guy. He plays it very well. I feel his backstory probably could have been fleshed out a little bit better. Maybe give him a little grudge with Santa and less with Christmas itself. Overall, his character was okay. I mean, he's mostly just there to yell and be give me the money. All of his little henchmen all have clever little yeah, it's me, Mistletoe. Hey, where's Candy Cane? Hey, somebody go check on Tinsel. They all have these like dumb little Christmas names, which actually works. It adds to the more Christmas vibe, and it makes it easier to remember. That way you're not remembering like Johnson, Samuel. Throughout the film, there are other references to other classic Christmas movies. There's a real die-hard vibe with the whole walkie-talkie thing with Santa and the little girl. There's also Home Alone references. Not only do they reference the film, but they reference it with like, you know, all the little booby traps and stuff like that. So just more fun with like other Christmassy vibes. It keep it with the film. Like it keeps it Christmassy the entire time. It was also interesting going a little bit into the backstory of Santa. They do a little thing where they flash back to his previous life. It had a real vibe of like, oh, is this like, I had to like double check, like, is this based on like a graphic novel or something? It had a real, when they flash back to his old life, it has a real graphic novel kind of vibe. But as far as I can tell, not based on any graphic novel or anything. It's just a cool backstory. And I also appreciate that they don't go too deep into like explaining all the magic and everything. There's several times where even Santa himself just writes it off as like, it's just Christmas magic. Even I don't even understand all of it. Which I feel like is a good summary for the film. Like, do you really need an explanation for every little thing? Like, come on, it's just Santa fighting bad guys. Like, come along, we'll have the magic work when it needs to. Like, we're not going to go too deep into it. Like, we're going to keep it light, surface stuff, and fun. Which, overall, it is. Violent Night is pretty fun. It's like a fun, old-school B kind of movie. Lots of humor, lots of over-the-top violence. I will say that at a certain point, some of the violence does get a tiny bit gratuitous. I was really looking forward to a whole variety of, like, different ways that people would get murdered Christmassy or whatever, but I want to say that a good chunk of the death is done by hammer blow, so it does become a little bit repetitive. I mean, you can only kill somebody with a sledgehammer in so many creative ways before it becomes like a little bit repetitive. Another thing that maybe would have made it a tiny bit better is to cut back the length of the movie a little bit. It runs just under 2 hours. I feel like if they would have cut it back to maybe like the $1.45, it would have been a little bit better, but overall, not too much to complain about on this one. I'd say it's probably the kind of movie you want to see with a large crowd, a large, loud crowd. It's the kind of movie that you want to like cheer and yell and like woo and like laugh with everybody else. It's got that kind of vibe to it. So let's go ahead and slap Violent Night with our overall rating. Violent Night is full of really great performances as well as a ton of comedy and enough violence to satisfy any action fan. It has a real like 80s B-movie kind of vibe, and I think that's probably the best rating we can give it. We're going to slap Violent Night with a solid B+. Is it the greatest movie ever? No, I mean, like, there's little flaws here and there, but overall, it was really fun, and overall, it's like a really good movie that never really loses its kind of warm, Christmassy vibe throughout the film, which I really appreciated. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you felt differently about Violent Night, make sure you comment down below, and if you haven't already, smack the old like and subscribe button. Definitely helps the show stay alive. I am your host, as always, Kyle McLemore, and we'll see you next time at the movies.